So another part about leading somebody is their makeup, how an individual is really designed by God, and it's also a collection of their past experiences. You have a really cool saying that I think is so powerful in terms of maybe helping me understand somebody that I'm leading. Unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah, I mean, I call it, your wiring and your wounds. It's our makeup as a leader comes from two places. Our wiring is when we were born, I believe all the evidence is, and all of the things out there, StrengthsFinder and Myers-Briggs and DISC, all kind of ultimately come down to the same thing. And it's that God wires us with a common set of things, but with a different combination, and he sprinkles that around to make us a whole. So it's like, we can pretty quickly identify what my wiring is. Yeah. You can take an assessment, and then there's observation. So that's my wiring. And we don't control what that is, and you can fight against, I don't want that strength, I want this strength over here, and you can work, as hard as you can, and you're not going to change the way God wired you. In that arena, it's a toolkit that I decide I'm going to own it, use it, and it's going to become my tools, my weapons, my whatever you want to call them. It's my go-to things.
Let's camp on wiring, right, real quick, because I think some people use, well, I'm just a 3, so it's like this excuse now of like, all of my behavior is now excused because of how I'm wired. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think it really has to do with self-awareness. So if I'm that person, I should be seeking to have a really good awareness of my wiring, but never as an excuse. I should think about it as, how can I identify and then maximize all the gifts and strengths that God has given me? Yeah. But then when I look at my weaknesses, I don't use those as an excuse for poor behavior or for opting out of what I'm expected to do. I look at those as opportunities to try to develop weak areas, in my life, or at the very least build kind of contingencies around those so that they don't become big liabilities in my work. And then if I'm the leader looking at that person, I gotta strike this really delicate balance between, I want to push people outside their comfort zone. One of my responsibilities as their leader is to make sure that they are growing. So I can't just leave them in that place where they might say, oh, I'm good at this, but not that. It's just how God made me. I want to push them a little bit outside that comfort zone. But I also need to be strategic that I'm putting this person in a position where they can really thrive.
Right.
I don't want to take somebody who's incredible with people and a disaster with systems and make their whole job systems. That would just be malpractice as a leader. Yeah. So I've got to find that balance, because I want to help them thrive, help them produce the results they need to produce, but I also want to help them grow along the way.
Yeah, that's good. When we talk about strength, sometimes we say, hey, there's a balcony and there's a basement to strength. So using your strength in a healthy environment, you're in your balcony, you see the best benefit or byproduct of that strength. But if you're in your basement, it almost becomes like a two-edged sword. Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about my wiring in my basement, how that can almost become what you're mentioning as a liability.
Yeah, it's really an extension of what Greg was talking about. It's really, how do I know what the characteristics of my strengths are when I'm healthy and when I'm using them in a healthy way for good, if you will. And then I also have a basement that those same strengths, let's say one of my top strengths is communication. I can use that to clarify a room. I can use it to build people up, to inspire people to a vision. I can also use that to be the smartest person in the room. And demean other people. I can use it to...
You move it into the basement.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and that's what I mean. I can do that, or I can also, in the basement, do those things, which is, I can use it to, for ambition. I can use it to shred other people that are challenging me. It's the same strength. So a strength isn't, it's a good thing or a bad thing, or it's strong or it's weak. It's really, are you in a healthy place, which we call the balcony, or are you in the basement of that strength? And it has different characteristics depending on whether you're on top of it or it's on top of you.
Yeah. Like how you said, like it's that self-awareness too, of like, even just being able to recognize this is not the best use of my strength. This actually is making me more vulnerable as a leader. Yeah. All right, so turn the corner. You talk about wiring. Now talk about this wound part of it.
Yeah. So if wiring is the unique gifts that God's given me and how He's built me, wounds are the experiences. I like to say the things that have happened to me, or the words that people have spoken to me that I maybe shouldn't have believed, or maybe I believed them in a time that they were helpful, and now I'm believing in a season that it's not helping me. Yeah. And I think it's that combination. And I think our challenge is, am I going to take those wounds and let that become a barrier, or is it going to be a breakthrough for me? Right. Am I going to use it as a bridge to get to the next highest place? I know some of the most, damaging wounds in my life, once they've healed over and become scars, are the things that can even, scars attract people's questions about how did that happen to you? And it becomes an ability to segue into the conversation of how God changed your life, and you now have an ability a superpower that you never had before, but you've overcome a really difficult thing. And I think of the greatest leaders in the world and how they rose to the occasion, and it was typically through a very, very difficult place with some major obstacles and wounds, and they overcame those things, which gave them just a different level of perspective, of empathy. And I think if you look in the past of most great leaders, there's some real tragedy usually that's been used. And it's the same tragedy in other people's lives that they've let hold them back and basically live a very difficult, small life.
Yeah. I like that, because you can then see the capacity by which God does want to grow us, because thus far, the Lord has been faithful. Thus far, He has delivered us. Thus far, I now have faith and confidence in the future that it's not if there's going to be wounds, it's when.
Right.
And then how do I love that when the wounds turn into scars, they're signs of God's faithfulness, because He healed this. Yep. He brought me through this, and I can now use that as a megaphone really to say, thus far, the Lord has been faithful. Yeah. Anything about wounds that you think is important or powerful as you're recognizing yourself or leading others?
Yeah, I love what Phil said, is a wound is painful when it happens, but it doesn't always have to be painful. It can eventually become a great thing that God uses in your life. And I think that's a skill for a leader to learn, which is to help the people they lead be able to reframe their wounds. And it is delicate, because you could go to an extreme where it feels insensitive, where it feels like you're not acknowledging, the seriousness of what someone has been through. But over time, through relationship, if I can help someone that I lead see something that they used to view as, damage or brokenness in their life, and see how, no, this might actually be the thing that God uses in a greater way than you ever could have imagined. That's one of the best gifts I could ever give somebody that I lead.